We good to go?
Yes. The presentation's ready to
Laura, are you
go.
still there? Nope. Hello? Hello? Lori?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just realized I put mute on my computer, so that was very silly.
Okay. Everybody's released and we're ready to go.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so, hello, sorry about that. This is Lee Johnson. Welcome to CAUSE's July 2017 Teaching and Learning webinar. Today we're going to be talking about linked data's network effect. I'm sorry, maximizing linked data's network effect. We're with Carolee Mitchell from Academic Relations Manager, an Academic Relations Manager at Dataworld. My apologies. So, Carolee, if you want to take it away.
Great, thanks so much for the intro, Lee. This is Carolee. Great to meet you all. I am here with my colleague Selena.
Hi everyone, this is Selena.
We're going to be doing a quick overview of data.world, talking a bit about the platform. This is a free-to-use resource that I'm actually as Lee said, I'm the Academic Relationships Manager at Data.world, so my job is getting as many academics on the platform as possible. As I said, this is a free resource that's available to you all to start getting folks involved. So talk a little bit about who we are and what we're doing. So the purpose of Data.world is to build the most meaningful, collaborative, and abundant data resource in the world. So in essence, what we're doing is building a data discovery and collaboration platform. Some reason, it's kind of the reasons of why we were built and why we have been growing as a platform is that there are roughly, this is my research when I first started at the company, over 18 million open data sets as of last year online. Those are on about that many websites, and half of those websites were built in 1997 and haven't been updated. Finding data is a nightmare for folks, and so what we're building is a website that can bring data sources together. But more importantly, just having the data there isn't what gets the most benefit from the data. It's having the people there as well. So along with finding data, a really huge challenge of working with data is the social challenges. So being able to discuss and share data. You'll see some examples here that, people should be sharing their data, especially in research. A lot of times that is on some weird, strange website. It may be on a thumb drive somewhere. It may be on, I've literally seen data since I've been working here on tape drives. So actually finding and sharing the data can be really, really difficult. And so, and being in academia as well, you find that, and this may ring true to a lot of you all, is that when it's a really transient population, so people come and go. They can be involved in a project that's really data focused, but all of the conversations that are going on are maybe via email, maybe via text message, could be during Slack or some other technology like that. It oftentimes is very separate from the data itself. Data is being shared in many different platforms. It could be on a server, FTP, it could be in Box, Dropbox, could be in Google, like Google Drive, but rarely are the communications and the data in one place. So one thing that we do offer is the ability to have all of that in one place, and I will show a demo after we kind of go through this. But so just sharing a link that can easily bring people up to speed and make sure that everyone's on the same page. When we talk about data communication and data work, what we're also finding is that the same work is happening everywhere. But because of that lack of communication, people don't know that it's happening. Zika is a really great example. You know, there are people working all over the world to solve the problem, but they're starting, every single person is starting from relatively the same place and moving forward, rather than taking the work that someone else has done and taking it farther. And so that network effect, the idea that, you know, kind of our altruistic idea is that people can join their work and join their communications and their research and take things much farther than it's been to this point. So that's what we're here for. We're here to help make finding data easy. Discovering new data, really exciting. This really comes into play in an academic setting as well. A lot of times students are asked to find data to work with, and a lot of times a professor may give them a cars.csv file to do, you know, initial data work, when they could find some data that really means something to them. Preparing data can be a hassle, like even knowing if that data is relevant to them or if it's even worth their time. And that collaboration piece that I talked about, it's all over the place. It dies when someone leaves a project. So having that collaboration be vibrant and meaningful and seamless. And then also, you know, the whole idea of combining data, that's something that, you know, that's kind of next level, and there aren't many opportunities to combine data with data types with each other in order to further research. So one of the ways that we're making data meaningful is that everything that we're doing is based on semantic technology. I'm not going to go super deep unless in the question section people want to learn a little bit more. But in essence, what we're doing is on the back end, we are deriving a lot of insights into the data by breaking it down into its core values. And so not only when you upload a data set to the platform, is it there for sharing, but we're also going in on the back end and making some really relevant statements about the data. So we're able to tell you what it looks like, what's the form of the data, how many rows, how many columns, how many unique elements, how many empty cells, the things that you would normally have to spin up a database and run a lot of queries to find. We're going to show you that immediately. And also because we're using semantic tech and RDF on the back end, you're able to easily join data. And so you can get seemingly disparate pieces of data to talk to one another. And another piece through this process is being able to document data. So having social cues like likes, people commenting on the data. You can actually annotate the data. We have data dictionaries that can be updated so that you can talk about your methodology behind gathering the data. So the data you're creating that holistic data story and not just having a piece of static data sitting on a server somewhere. So one of the things we want to talk about is like data sets and what we have on the site, and I'll let Selena talk a little bit to that.
Sure. So as Carolee said, there are millions and millions and millions of data sets out there, and so knowing where to start was not necessarily easy, but we definitely wanted to start with data we'd consider canonical. So what are people looking for? What are they often using in school or even in their research? So we started with government data. One of our biggest projects has been with the census and helping them make the data usable. I mean, right now it's an enormous amount of data, and one of our data scientists worked very hard for over a year to make that available on the platform. But in addition, there are also other smaller data sets that are being created by smaller organizations, for example, that might invest a lot of resources into publishing something that may not be found. So that's also a responsibility I consider of data.world, is helping get that data a better distribution to people who are looking for it. So if you were to come to data.world, you would find a variety of things, not only the things you'd expect, like cars.csv, which I assume a few of you may know about, but also really specific things like UFO sightings, or the intelligence of dogs is a popular one. Yeah, so it runs the gamut, and it is data.world, so we're all inclusive when it comes to data.
And we'll show some examples as part of the demo as well. And then we have some user stories, but I wanted to really focus on data education and how that's playing out in the academic setting. So right now, like I said, my main focus is with higher ed and academia to make sure that people are using the platform within their classes, within their research. And so we're having some really great examples so far. You know, predictive analytics tutorials are starting to use us more. We've been working closely with faculty who actually use us as their main starting point for their coursework. So they will actually create class projects and have all of their students in on the site working with specific data. As I'll start to show you when we look at the platform, there's working directly within the platform, but we also have very, very robust APIs that allow for some more creative means of working with data. So this example of Dr. Kanata, he actually used our APIs to pull data directly into some really proprietary Cisco systems as part of his data visualization course. And another thing to note about us is that we are a benefit corporation, certified benefit corporation. This is fairly new. Texas actually we're in Texas, and Texas just approved benefit corporations as well. But most corporations are C Corps, what you see. We still have a fiduciary responsibility to our investors, but we do have this, I call it candy coating of altruism, so that it kind of protects us, that we have our benefit statement that is, our core mission is to make the world's data readily available. And so we can actually use that, when being purchased, when being, part of an acquisition. If someone is not going to value that benefit, that statement that we have, we can actually make that into we can make it part of our choice as to where we go. So it really is a guiding principle that making data, the world's data, publicly available is something that we take very seriously. I wanted to go in and actually show you a little bit of the platform. We're about halfway through the point of our time together for the demo portion. This is data.world. This is my homepage. So when I come to data.world, this is what I see. You'll see that there are a lot of social elements, like we're encouraging people to follow one another. I can see top tags that are used, so when someone uploads a data set, they're able to tag it, so that helps with findability. We were just talking about that, about how it really is difficult to find data. And then we start to pull in this feed relevant data sets. So anything that's of interest, anything that's trending, anything of people that I'm following or data sets that I'm involved in. We also will have some updates. We are really, the site has been live for just over a year now, and we make changes quite often to add future functionality to the platform. Over here, it's more personal, so you'll see that we'll have a link to my profile, which I'll take us to in a second. But then you can see all of the data that I have access to. And so here, with the data that I have access to from my homepage, you can see the difference between private and open. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing research, when you're doing something that hasn't been published yet. Of course, private is probably a mode that you would be most likely to use. And then when you're ready to publish, you can actually switch it over to open. We are really encouraging open use, but we do understand the importance of private as well. Some other modes within, you'll notice here my homepage, that that this is my individual location. I can also show you that we have organization pages. So this is for a University of North Carolina at Charlotte course this fall. And so the professor has created this organization that then is going to host each of his classes within this semester. And some benefits of that is that you can actually define a team and quickly give a whole team access to data sets. And data projects is something that's new to the site. So along with being able to upload data sets, which could be individual pieces of data or collections of data, you can create a data project, and that can be a place that your organization or individuals come to work that allow you to pull in you can link data, you can pull in your own data, but you could also find data elsewhere on the site and link it to what you are working on. You can see here that there are all these project files, and they are from different owners. So it's kind of borrowing the data, pulling it all in one place, and then that allows you to do things like run queries, which is something that's really I think an awesome opportunity for academics, is being able to have in-platform SQL and Sparkle, which is a semantic query language, queries. You can run them here through the platform without having to spin up your own database. So it's a great opportunity for teaching SQL. You'll see here that there's actually, I could, if I remembered different family names from my dinosaur class that I took in college many, many years ago, I could change family name and change my searches here. I can save out versions of the search personally based off of searches that other people have done. And then from here, you can also export. So you can download a CSV or an Excel file. If you wanted to take this work and take it into R or Python to further your work, you can do that. We also have connectors, like I said, to Python, R. We have Tableau and a JDBC connector as well. So, everything that we've talked about, like discovery and collaboration, that's the kind of, beginning to work with and talking about data. But we're not going to in any way dictate how someone should work with the data once they're moving forward. So we're trying to make it very, very easy to start with data, know that you want to move forward with it, run some queries, get into the data a little bit more, but then take it into deeper analysis tools. And then Selena, I'll let you talk through the different data sets.
Sure. Excuse me. So you've kind of seen the way the platform is laid out. I wanted to walk you through specific data sets. So these will be data set pages. And this is actually an account. So this is the U.S. Census Bureau's account. And they have 74 data sets. And like I mentioned, we did a lot of work to get these kind of bite-sized data sets in here that allow people to search by state or year in a lot easier way than you might be able to on the census's website. So I wanted to feature kind of early on more canonical data, like I mentioned. We wanted to focus on data that is highly cited, that is open, and so this was one of our early projects. Another kind of canonical source would be UCI. They're often used in different data-related projects. We got their most popular data sets on here because besides being a resource for data, we also want to be an educational resource, not just kind of a repository, but also provide these kind of materials that allow you to help you as you learn more about how to analyze and manipulate data. So this was definitely one that we added early on. In addition to data we're adding, we also have partners. So recently the Department of Treasury released their spending data, so what kind of contracts the government is getting and that kind of a thing. So they created this account on data.world, and they added these data sets. They call them slim data sets. So these are curated files, basically. And here you can see that they've added descriptions, they've added a data dictionary, and you can download this, you can add it to a project, you can even ask them a question about it, and they'll respond to you. The platform is also a great resource for anyone who has data that they want to share with others. So in addition to data we find out in the wild and data that partners add themselves, we're also developing things in-house to help people learn about data science and other data analyses type things. Imagine you would find these useful or interesting for whatever you're studying or doing. Our resident data scientist has put a lot of work into creating these based on feedback he gets and other feedback from academics. So these are definitely worth checking out. This is just an example of what an exercise would look like, and there are also solutions. So it's a well-rounded kind of thing. Here, no, our data scientists use data from the census that we added to the platform to create this exercise. And finally, I wanted just to present to you our tools that allow you to search for data. So I thought you might like to see the results for statistics on here. There are over 1,000 data sets that relate to statistics. You can filter them by maybe education, for example. In addition, Carolee touched on this, but we also have projects. I wanted to touch on it again just to show you how they kind of work, because it's good to note that you can work with other people on the platform. So you can have partners, and if you're working on a project, you can share it with others and invite others to join. And data doesn't always have to be serious. Here's a little less of a serious topic, Bigfoot sightings in the US. This is a real data set. These are really people working on it, and these are real insights derived from this data. So just something to keep in mind, that that you can analyze almost anything. And finally, also wanted to show this other ways you can search on the platform. You can even search by column. I thought zip would be a really interesting one, since that's something you can join a lot of data on. But this is kind of a high-level overview of the type of data you can find and look for on the platform.
Okay, we stuck almost perfectly to time. So now at this point, we can answer any questions that people may have. Just before we get too far into that, is that I'll make sure that you all have my contact information. But like I said, my job is to help people get on the platform, help faculty and staff kind of plan for using us. So kind of going through some ideas about best ways to utilize us for their coursework or research.
So if anyone has a question, you can either type it into the question box, or you could just simply raise your hand and I can unmute you. This is Lee Johnson again. Actually, I did have a quick question, but we have a hand raised. So let me find that. Oops. Well, we did. Okay. Okay. So is there any sort of, what's the process for getting a data set on here? Like, do you have to provide a documentation of how you collected it? Because obviously with the Bigfoot data, there are less serious data sets than others.
Yeah, so it's actually it's a really pretty seamless process. So when you come to the top here of the platform, you can add either a new project or a new data set. When you add a data set, you create your title, decide if it's open or private, upload your data, and then from there you can choose if you have the licensing for the data. We do capture that, and then really it's up to you to enter any information about the data that you have.
Okay.
And I'd also like to real quick feature or show how we don't necessarily require a lot from you, but often if the community is interested in, interested in your data, but maybe, for example, here, he didn't really provide much besides the title and the actual data set, you can ask a user directly and say, like, hey, where did this come from? And hopefully they'll respond and make it useful for you.
Okay, I was going to say, because a lot of times data sets have like variable names that are just very weird, and so it's very hard to understand what it is that's in the set.
Yeah. So we do provide, that there's in the summary sections we support Markdown, so you can actually get really, really specific and do some pretty amazing documentation, elaborate documentation about your data set. But some people choose to not do as much.
Yeah. Okay. Are there other? Oh, I have a hand raised. Let me Milburn unmute. Milburn, you're on. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah. Is there a place where you have like a site directory, how you can go find all these different places that you're talking about, like an overview? And then the second question would be, what's your cost structure, or what are you charging for this?
So I'll do the second question first. At this point, the platform is open and free for academic use. We at some point, of course, are going to be focusing on more enterprise type, so university level agreements. So you could imagine there'd be like, UT Austin .data.world. But at this point, it's freely and open for people to use. Second one, really, we've worked very, very hard to make the site as intuitive as possible. So finding the data, finding the functionality can be, it's really just about exploration, doing searches. But if you go to docs.data.world, you'll find links to all of our help documentation that includes some how-tos. And also from there, you can find, if you wanted to get really, hardcore into the platform, information on the APIs and SDKs and such. So really, docs.data.world has all of that information.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Feel free to raise your hand. It'll just take me a second to unmute you. Okay. It looks like no one else has any other questions, so I just want to say thank you to Carolee and Felina for presenting. And unless you guys have anything else, we'll go ahead and call it a wrap.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or if you wanted to have a one-on-one session to talk about how you could use data.world.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Amazing.